Welcome to Chat with the Lawyer. I'm your host, Walla Blagay, and today we're honored to have Attorney Isaac Falusi from TF Partners and also a recent elected president of the Nigerian American Lawyers Association. Welcome.
Thank you, Walla. Thank you for having me.
And what we're going to talk about today, very important issue, domestic violence. This is something that plagues our community in the Washington, D.C. area. We're going to particularly talk about the impact that it has on immigrant communities. And we have someone here that does great work in this field and wants to talk to us about it.
Well, thank you. Okay.
So tell us about your practice. How long have you been doing it?
All right. Well, my name is Isaac Falusi, as Ms. Waller said. I'm a partner at TF Partners PC. We're a law firm in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'm also the president of Nigerian American Lawyers Association. Domestic violence is very important to me, personally. I actually stumbled into the matter because of the kind of people that were coming in to our business seeking help. Part of my practice is immigration law. Part of what I do international trade, I do immigration law. And it is through immigration law that I get to meet a lot of victims of domestic violence coming through the door. And there is one underlying factor that I notice with these victims of domestic violence is there is a staggering amount of lack of information going on. They were fearful of something. And because of that, most of them subjected themselves to victimhood because of that fear. And then that fear it has no basis in reality. They just didn't know information, that's all. They were just lacking in knowing more information. So I decided to want to push this thing, and of course push it through the organization, Nigerian American Lawyers Association, just to give people informational stuff to equip them so they can make a better decision for themselves and not subject themselves to unnecessary victimhood at home or wherever they come from.
So let's start there. What information does someone that's being victimized from domestic violence needs to know?
All right. What I'm about to say will be more useful to most of your immigrants viewer, most of your African immigrants, not just African, any other country that you come from. It will be useful to you because in my line of work, what I see often is the victim is usually not from here. Mm-hmm. The victim usually does not have a document to stay in this country.
I see. So they've been brought here illegally. Exactly.
Is it that they were brought here illegally, or they were brought here legally, basically maybe through marriage, because right. Domestic violence is usually inside marriage. If you're not married, it's just called harassment, right? Through marriage, they were brought here, and they didn't have their document to stay in this country. And their spouse basically is lording it over them, that if you don't do what I say, I will return you back to where you're coming from. So because of that, most of them just go through lifetime of suffering, not knowing that that is completely false. Just because someone brought you here from whatever country, or just because someone met you here, you got married, but you don't have a paper, and they're going to file for you to get a paper, does not mean that person can bully you around or abuse you.
Now let's start with the legal person. Now the person has been brought from whatever country and brought to marry somebody, and they got married. Mm-hmm. Now this person is being abused. What is the first step that they can do to protect themselves?
All right. First thing they need to do is to make sure they use the number 911. Okay. They need to know that number. It's very easy. 911 emergency. If you are being beaten, that's a serious matter. and not just not just heavy beating. We're just talking about just regular slap. It starts from there. It starts from the littlest of things. Call 911.
So if you've been hit, if you've been slapped by your partner, and you call 911, and 911 says, so what's the problem? I've been slapped by somebody. Is that enough for them to bring a police to your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is enough.
Okay, so some people might think it, and I'm just saying that because some people might think you need to be bleeding, you need to be beaten
no, you don't,
so badly that you
the
can't
law
move.
does not allow for that. We have to understand that domestic violence is a criminal matter. A lot of people don't look at it as a criminal matter. If I slap you, if we're now married and I slap you, you could call the cops on me and the state could press charges. That will be assault or assault and battery. If I use my phone, if I use a phone and throw it at you, that is an assault with a weapon. But inside marriage, people just don't look at it as that. Oh, he's just upset at me. It's no big deal. That it is a big deal because that's how it starts. That's how it goes. So you don't need to subject yourself to that. And the reason people just go along with it is, as one of your staff was saying earlier, is because they think, well, this guy is not going to file my paper. It's not going to file the paper for me to stay because most of them want to stay in America. And in the eyes of the law, that's false. That's a false narrative.
Go into that.
Okay.
Now, if the woman is being beaten, and we will assume it's a woman because men do get beaten, just want to make sure people understand it's on both sides you're protected. If a woman is being beaten and the papers have not been filed yet, they are not the citizen, the man is. The abuser is the citizen.
Or the other way around.
Or the other way around, so exactly. How are they protected?
All right. They are protected with the law. What the law says is that what matters is when you married your husband or wife. Okay. It is the intent when you marry your husband or wife. If you marry your husband or wife out of love, not because you are going to acquire some immigration benefit. If you marry them and then you can make a showing of that, then that's it. Even if the husband or the wife decided later they want to withdraw, it is not in their, as long as they have filed the first paper, if they want to withdraw, it is not in their hand anymore. You, as the spouse, can still continue that paper. You would just have to continue that paper based on the very fact that you are a victim of violence.
Okay. Now, let's go into the 911 piece because that becomes the big issue. A woman or a man calls 911, complaining they're abused. The police comes to the house. They take a report. What happens after that? Go through that process.
Exactly. The thing is, what we are trying to do here is paperwork. All right. I'm just speaking from my attorney's point of view.
And that's what people need to hear.
Exactly.
What do they need? They need to get it on the record that they've been abused.
You need to have it on the record that you've been abused. So when you go in front of the immigration agency later on seeking for some immigration benefits based on the fact that you're a victim of abuse, you have something to show to them. It is not something that, also it's not something that you want to take advantage of. And, if nothing happens, you just call someone because that is lying, that's perjury. And you can go to jail for that. So if something is really happening to you, you have a diary, document what is going on, talk to people, and then so you have basically, you can call the shelter home, even if you don't call 911.
What shelter home do people call in this area? Do you know?
There is the name is not coming to me. There is the family shelter home in Bright Seat Road and I think Lanham, where a lot of people go to, and they're pretty.
Is it like the Family Crisis Center?
Yes, Family Crisis Center. Sorry, thank you.
And they take anyone?
If you are.
Do you have to have children?
It doesn't really matter.
As
long as you are as long as you're a victim of abuse.
Okay.
And again, I don't want people to think that this is just everybody anybody could suffer domestic violence. I want people to understand that it's not just the man beating the woman. There have been some situations where the women have been in 24% of domestic violence has been initiated by the woman, not the man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly. And
Even in immigrant
well, there's no number about the immigrant one, but we're just talking about in general.
In general.
In general.
Okay.
So we don't have data on the immigrant
Okay.
side. However, the reason why I care about immigration, domestic violence all around.
All around,
American, Russian,
Yeah,
Japanese,
everywhere.
whatever. I don't care. I care about it. However, because we are Nigerian American Lawyers Association, we want to bring, and the people that comes through the door that I have to help, I don't want to have to be doing free work all the time. If people are informed, very well know that just because your spouse marry you does not mean he has a hold over your paper, over your immigration paper. It doesn't work that way. Immigration does not look at it that way. What they look at is the intent. Did you get married for real? Mm-hmm. You didn't get married to circumvent immigration law.
Let's bring a reality out of this. Now, the abuser could say something else. Like isn't that right? If they don't want you anymore now because you're not following along with the plan, could they turn against you? Have you seen this happen? Where the abuser says, no, actually, she or he was only trying to come to get in this country just because they wanted immigration status. I didn't love them. They didn't love me.
Of course. I get that every single case that walks in. Every time, unfortunately, there have been women that have walked in through the door seeking help how they can normalize their paper situation through immigration. Every time that they have taken the bold step, those victims that have taken the bold step to say, you know what, I am not doing this anymore, I'm getting out. Mm-hmm. Every time the spouse have said, no, they only marry me, but doesn't really matter in eyes of the law, eyes of the immigration law, as long as you yourself could prove that I didn't marry this guy based on the very fact that I want immigration benefit.
Okay.
So
we're going to take a short break, but you see, this is really good information. If you are being abused, I want you to listen in because this is a way that this can help you. So please stay with us. Thank you.
The following is a public service announcement test to determine if you need a fishing license and boat registration before you head out on the water. Let us begin. Are you a pelican? Does this look like your house? Is this your idea of fishing with friends? Do you use your feet as fishing hooks? Are you your own boat? Do you have webbed feet? No, I mean like a... That's the one. Do you want this in your favorite lake? Yuck, yike. No thanks, mister. Regardless how you answered, you need to be licensed and registered because it helps local conservation efforts protect the very natural resources you enjoy boating and fishing in for generations to come. Do your part at takemefishing.org.
Welcome back to Chat with the Lawyer, and we're here with Attorney Isaac Falusi, who's talking about a very important issue, domestic violence. So let's go back into what we discussed before. Now, one of the things that you talked about is calling 911. Now, usually the scare that many victims have discussed with me is once you call 911, you open up a can of worms to be abused even more. So what should someone do in that case after you call 911, the police comes?
After or before?
Both after you call 911.
Okay, the thing is, you just have to understand that this is my life. You have to think about yourself first. Because if you have in your mind that every time that an abuser is nice to you and beg you to come back, because you always have like a honeymoon time. Abuser comes home, slap you up and down. Mm-hmm. You call the cops. Okay, he begs you, he buys you roses, he buys you all these things. Trust me, that is an honeymoon time. And that honeymoon time is going to go again. There is a study about that. Every time that you've gone back to an abuser, he has resorted back to being abusive again. So that is very important that people have that in mind. I'm not saying that you should just kind of end your marriage because of that, but you need to make sure you need to find a way to also get the abuser treatment or something.
Right.
You know, you cannot just wait and then, the abuser gets all romantic and all nice and wow, I didn't see this before, he loves me. If he loves you, there is no way he will have raised his hand over you.
Right.
You know, if he loves you, there is no way he will have gotten so mad that he couldn't control himself. When somebody loves you, you have to understand that person should be the most important person. You guys are in the same house.
Right.
You know, sharing everything.
Right.
So you don't beat up people that you love and share everything with.
Now let's go into one of the things we're talking about. You said that if a victim has to go before the courts to prove that they should stay, they should keep their status regardless of what their abuser decided to do. What proof do they need to show that there was real love? That what do you use when you represent your?
Basically, before you get married, there are many people that you've had some sort of conversation with. Before you get married, you will have discussed with your parent, you will have discussed it with your friends. Those people could testify for you. And before you get married, I'm sure there are so many memorabilia that you have before you guys get married. When he proposed to you, you probably know the date. You probably have written, in this day of media, you've written something where you guys said, well, we're getting married, so. These things shows intent. You know, something that is planned and for different purpose, it's not as detailed as if it's natural. So you could use those things. You could use people that you confided in about your marriage to testify for you, your parents. Most of us, there's no way we get married without our parents not being there, right? Those are very, very important.
Even your wedding videos or things like that.
Your wedding videos, all those things. Your wedding day. Did you guys go on honeymoon? Where did you guys go? Did you keep records of all these things? You'll be able to make a showing of your intent with those things.
And tell us why this is important now. Somebody who's just doing it for immigration, do they usually have weddings and things like that?
I'm sure they do. And those kinds of, we're lawyers. I keep away from that. When you come into my office, that would make sure that your marriage is legit.
Right. Make sure you do.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Now let's go into some of the other. Now there's a cultural impact on this. Now a lot of people if you are in an immigrant community that've come over, they're usually small knit communities. Usually people are encouraging you to stay with the person that's abusing you, even if you are complaining. What do you have to say for those people?
All right. I'm really, really glad you brought that up. That is one of the reasons why I'm actually here. I want to tell people that we have to understand some of the stuff that we call culture is not our culture. It's just our practice that may be taking over the definition of culture. There is nowhere in the culture that say you should submit to a husband that is beating you up. Even Bible does not say that. When you and a lot of people justify their staying with a biblical, with maybe their religion, whatever it is. I mean, I understand those things, but that doesn't mean you should stay without not trying to find a solution to that problem. Because at the end of the day, you're the one hurting, not your pastor, not your father, not your culture. So do not let yourself be bullied by that. If your culture dictates that you should stay, I'm sure your culture also tells your husband never to raise his hand over you, right?
Well, that's a good point.
If he's violating that, hey, sorry. It's a bargain. You bargain to be in a relationship with each other.
Right.
My culture says you should take care of me.
Right.
Hey, you're not doing that, so sorry, I'm not gonna do you know, if you do that, whatever you do begets what I'm gonna do.
Right.
You know, so again, we just have to keep moving on and trying to find any culture that is not trying to find a fair point should be relooked again. Any culture that is not struggle to make sure it's fair to everybody. We are all created equal. A man is not created more than a woman is not created more than a man. We complement each other. Right. You know, you bring something to the table, I bring something to the table. Any culture that is not striving hard to get into that center point, a fair point, where relationship is fair to me, it's fair to you, I'm sorry, you need to look at that again. Right. You know, you need to check that. And I tell people, you know, like, study. There are people, most of the clients in my, like, they've cited religion, like, they study the religion, study the Bible. I'm not sure you're reading the Bible very well. Right. Whatever you're seeing as, oh, that's what the religion is. No, maybe that's what your pastor have said. Right. Have you read the Bible? What does it say over it? Right. You know, have you, you know, find so many other avenues over these things? So I'm just like, people need to be empowered. Right. To know that we all deserve to be happy. Yeah. And I want people to just, you know, societal pressure, cultural pressure, it's not worth your life at the end of the day. And I don't, you know, I've seen things in my line of work where I've completely been very, very upset at pastors. Right. You know, how do you get beaten at home? You run to your pastor, and your pastor sends you back to the house. Right. Does not make any sense. However, that pastor call your husband, tell your husband to get out of the house. If that pastor has so much power over your home, okay. So let him make sure that the husband doesn't come
that you're safe.
And that you're safe first.
Yes.
You know,
that's right.
It's just it is not fair, a situation where one side is just being asked to sacrifice, to bear the brunt, while the other side is not being told to change their ways. It's not a situation.
And you know what, you bring up a good point. I found that with domestic violence, it's actually not really the law. Sometimes the laws are there. It's just that because it's relationships, people don't use them. So you have people who are being constantly abused that walk back into the relationship with the person because they do have the family pressures to say, nobody's perfect, you know, just work it out. Maybe you should do something differently to avoid the man from hitting you. And I do think that the culture is kind of helping that. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, thank you. You know, the culture can be helpful, but I think it can be more detrimental because usually some of our people are just listening to our mothers.
The mothers who want you to be married and have kids.
Exactly, just want to be married. They're not in your situation to understand. Also, there's also a financial aspect to this. Yes. People don't think that it's something called financial abuse. Yeah. That is something that we do in our culture. Actually, I'm from Nigeria, by the way. I've been here forever, but you know, I still have my heritage. That is complete financial abuse. Right. But people think it's a good thing when your husband is giving you allowance. Some people interpret that as love. If you don't work at all, your husband commanded you not to work, number one, right? You don't leave the house. He gives you allowance. Right. Basically, it's determining your life. Right. If anything happens, he withholds that allowance. Right. And guess what? If he slaps you, you don't want to go anywhere because, I don't know.
I'll lose my allowance.
I've relied on my allowance. Yeah. You are not his child. You are his partner. Right. Right. That's definitely. Some people take that as a good thing. Oh, my husband said I shouldn't work. It's not a good thing.
No, because it takes away your power.
Exactly. If both of you are not determining the financial arrangement of the relationship, I'm sorry. That is, you're prone to being financially abused. And then from there, it gets to physical abuse because the day you start fighting back, you know, what can she do without me?
Right. And I think that's getting a point because that's the and I think this goes for many countries. We're not just talking Africa. And I grew up in an African family too. My family is Liberian and Nigerian, but also in Latino culture and Asian culture. In many of those places, it's not encouraged for women to work. And men are usually the breadwinners. And when you come here, the culture is different, right? Women and men work.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That it is. My thing, I'm not advocating for you to walk. I mean, if that is what you guys plan in your place.
right. But it should be your choice.
It should be your choice.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I want you to understand that, you see, there's something very funny in our immigrant family, both Hispanic, blacks, or Africans. You know, the institution of marriage to us is so important. But we only want one person to sacrifice in that. Most of the time, it's only one person sacrificing.
Right.
If it's so important, the same pressure should be placed on the abuser.
Right.
It could be, the woman could be the abuser too, you never know. You know. So it balances itself out.
Right.
You know, if it's so important, you will understand that, okay, I'm living, they say you live your, in the Christian community, so you leave your house, he leaves his house, and you guys join together, and it's about both of you now. So if it's about both of you now, then both of you should be having a say in the decision in the house.
Right.
So if you don't have that, you're commanded not to work, to stay home. The financial decision, you don't know anything about it. You're just being fed.
Right.
That is a danger to that.
Right.
Where you're just being fed, and you're being fed fat, and you think you're having fun, but you don't have any leverage.
Right. Well, first, we're going to close this up. This has been
Thank
a great conversation. We're going to have to come back to this. Now, we mentioned the Family Crisis Center of Prince George's County. If you want to get in contact, if you are being abused, you need to call 911, and then you need to call the Family Crisis Center to get a place where you can leave your abuser. And the number is 301-731-1203. Please call this number. You need to get yourself out of the situation, leave the house. Now, if you need an attorney, how can they contact you?
Of course. Again, one more time, my name is Isaac Falusi. I work for TF Partners. We are a firm in Silver Spring, Maryland. We appear in all the courts of Maryland, DC, and Virginia, because we have attorneys that go around. Our phone number is 301-585-3314.
All right, well, thank you so much. This is really important information. If you want more information or you want to check out more of the lawyers that came on our show, you can go to www.chatwiththelawyer.tv. Thank you. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
FSHD is one of the most common forms of muscular dystrophy. It's a degenerative disease that weakens muscles in the face, shoulders, upper back, and legs. FSHD robs you of your smile and makes simple tasks nearly impossible to perform. FSHD affects hundreds of thousands of people, but most have never met another patient. Many have not even been diagnosed. Someone you know may be living with FSHD. Let them know they are not alone and that we're making real advances toward a treatment. You can help by going to our website, fshsociety.org/curefshd, and share the photos and facts about the disease using the hashtag #CureFSHD. By simply raising awareness, you could change someone's life and help us get closer to a cure.